This draft show from 2004 does a 4.5 rating, which was the highest of any of the other two draft shows that happened before. Paul Heyman is the GM of Smackdown. Eric Bischoff is running Raw, and they do these randomized draws where they're pulling these balls from a machine with wrestlers' names inside of them. So it's old school Royal Rumble style, almost like a lottery. What'd you think of whenever they would do these randomized names? I mean, obviously it's, tongue in cheek. We know the deal, but that's kind of fun, huh?
Yeah, it is, because now you're adding the element of the general manager doesn't have as much control over who's going to be drafted. You're at the luck of the draw, and it's a lottery versus an actual draft. So that was fun because it was, again, you throw in the unpredictability of it and what the hell could happen. Anything could happen at any time. And hey, we did those exercises too. Just like I've said before, where we've actually just thrown 1 through 30 in a bin and had guys pick for certain wrestlers to see where they would end up in the Royal Rumble. We did the same thing with the lottery. What if? And a lot of times that's mental masturbation because it doesn't matter, but it's fun to do, to break up the monotony a little bit of, hey, this could actually happen. So let's play this scenario out. What if they drew this? So you have to play all that shit out and look at every single side of it and how it affects business.
Let's talk a little bit about what actually happened that night. Rene Dupree gets drafted to SmackDown. Shelton Benjamin drafted to Raw. Jindrak going to SmackDown. Nydia to Raw. Excuse me. Triple H to SmackDown. Rhino to Raw. Rob Van Dam to SmackDown. Tajiri to Raw. And before the Triple H pick to SmackDown, we saw people drafted who weren't necessarily main eventers, but were big names at the time. Did you guys try to set that up just to get their names out there in hopes it would help them somewhat? Or, are you trying to elevate everybody in a draft? Or, because you are having people like Teddy Long going to SmackDown and Spike Dudley going to SmackDown. They're not necessarily, major, names necessarily on the show, but them being featured in a spot like this is a chance to, as you would say, give them a fresh paint of coat.
No, it's totally random, Conrad. It's just, we were drawing balls. And
sorry.
No, it was the anticipation of when you hear guys, maybe not main eventers, top guys, but they're interesting and they're moving from their norm. So you're thinking, okay, well, how are they going to fit over there? You're trying to play the audience here as well to think, what's this guy going to do in a new environment? Then you hit them with a bigger name and they go, oh shit, that's a big one. And people are going, all right, now this is getting interesting.
Let's keep it moving here. I do want to talk about an interesting pick. Paul Heyman, who is the SmackDown GM, is drafted to Raw and then he quits. What do you remember about that?
I will not be on the red brand. My brand is blue, which is why I only wear blue towels and I drip dry after I shower. Sometimes I lather up with all temperature. Storyline and the idea behind it was, again, that shocking moment of the SmackDown general manager. Wait a minute, the fucking general managers are in this thing too. So it made people talk. And then the idea of, and I believe it was even Paul's idea to say, well, what if I just quit? What if I didn't want to go to Raw and I just quit? And that was why we played that out. And that was a storyline that kind of resonated, because you hear guys all the time, football or whatever, if I get drafted to here, or if I get picked or traded to go somewhere else, I'll just quit. Very few ever do. It's usually just a bunch of talk and shit to get people talking about things. But this was one, okay, Paul quits. I will not do that, sir. And that was the idea behind it, and just let the storyline gradually go on until Paul reappears somewhere else.
Wade Keller would report in the Torch After a longer stint as SmackDown GM than originally anticipated, Paul Heyman has been moved out of that role in favor of Kurt Angle. Heyman originally was slated to be replaced last fall by Stephanie McMahon, who for now will remain in an off-air role in the creative department. Heyman has been acting very cocky on air as part of his character, referring to Paul Heyman's SmackDown so often that it almost gave away that the show wouldn't be his much longer. The plan for Heyman is for him to return in several weeks after selling the quitting angle and become a manager. Heyman has been so strong with his mic work lately, especially at house shows, that he may be a key in getting over some young wrestlers with a lot of potential, but lacking main event mic skills. We've done a Paul Heyman episode in the past. It's available in the archives at somethingtowrestle.com, but can it be overstated how strong Paul Heyman was and is on the mic?
No, I don't think it can. I think that Paul Heyman is the best on the mic right now that is, and probably he will be up there in the Bobby Heenan category is greatest managers of all time. And it may be Bobby Heenan and Paul Heyman. Heyman has just solidified. Paul has a way of telling you a story and bringing everything to where the littlest of detail is the major point, and making everything mean something. So he had that skill then. He has that skill now. I dare say he's gotten better over the years, but Paul took a company like ECW and was able to exploit very limited skills with guys and make it work. And he made it work for a while. Didn't make any money, but still that's one skill that is often overlooked with Paul, that he is able to get the most out of as little as possible.
Let's talk about the next match on the show. Triple H comes down to the ring wearing a Smackdown shirt, and he wrestles the WWE champion Eddie Guerrero for the title. It's going to be their first and only match against each other on TV. And that, in my research, really stood out to me. Was it ever talked about them doing a program together? It's pretty crazy to think that they didn't really have that much interaction. They didn't have that many matches. That could have been a really fun feud.
God, I think it would have been an incredible issue. There was so much there to work with, and unfortunately, we got one out of it, and that was it before Hunter went back to Raw. And at the same time, you kind of look at it, they were so strong. Both characters were so strong, it would have been a little tough too. But for me, I thought that it brought out the very best in Eddie. And for Hunter, it showed that he could work with any and everybody. And it was, unfortunately, we just got one out of it. And I thought that the one we got out of it was tremendous.